Welcome back to another episode of the Piano Pod. I am your host, Yukimi Song. For this episode, I invited Dr. Jeeyoon Kim, who is described as a force of nature who lives for that special connection with a live audience. I just finished interviewing her, and this quote is such a perfect description of Jeeyoon as an artist. I'm proud to say that this episode is going to be epic. I've wanted to interview her since the get-go, and I knew of her even before I started the Piano Pod through her YouTube channel, which we will discuss in detail during the show. Anyway, I got an email from her publicist during the lockdown of 2020 to see if Jeeyoon can be on the Piano Pod because she just finished writing her book at the time. The book is called Whenever You're Ready. Oh, by the way, this book is really awesome, and I have read it a few times, and I highly recommend it. The book tells you about a real life as a pianist, and it gets quite philosophical. Like, what does success look like to you? What do you want to bring to the world as a pianist? So anyway, finally, after over 2 years, I was able to invite her to interview, and I am excited to share this episode with you today. Now, I wanted to start a podcast show because for the longest time, I felt a huge gap between the classical music world and the general public, whether they're potential listeners or music students or their parents. And I wanted to start this show to fill the gap. Jeeyoon seemed to have the similar or same question or curiosity as mine, and she dedicated her career not only in her concert performances, but also in audience engagement by creating innovative concert programs, recordings, writing a book, creating a fan base on digital platforms, and more. So today, I want to focus on how we as classical musicians should be in touch with the rest of the world and connect with our audience in this modern and complicated world in a creative and meaningful way. So before inviting the guest of this episode, I want to welcome everyone who is listening to or watching the Piano Pod for the first time. I'm a classical pianist and educator from New York City, passionate about creating a thriving and the meaningful community of the classical music industry through this podcast. Please visit yukimisongstudio.com to find more about my work. In each episode of the Piano Pod, I interview a guest speaker who has been breaking exciting new ground in the music industry. Before getting started, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Please rate the show and review it on Apple Podcasts because every rating or review will help people find my show. So, everyone, are we ready for episode 14? All right, here we go, dear friends. Please enjoy the show. You are listening to the Piano Pod, where we talk to the brightest minds in the industry about how they are bringing the piano into the 21st century. I am honored to welcome Ms. Jeeyoon Kim, described as a force of nature, who is an award-winning classical pianist, recording artist, art activist, author, and educator. She has delighted audiences globally with her sensitive artistry, impeccable technique, and engaging and innovative concert experiences. Her dedication to pushing the boundaries of traditional classical music to connect with a new audience has inspired a dedicated and passionate fan base, both at concert venues and on digital platforms. So Jeeyoon, welcome and thanks for being here. I'm so excited to get to hear your stories today and then learn from you.
Especially thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you. And especially on the topic of audience engagement and how you are creatively engaging your fans. And I think that's one of the hottest topics right now in the industry, in our industry, especially with the rise of social media and digital platforms. But it's not just about our digital footprint or presence. It's more to do with how we as classical musicians can relate to and reach out to the new contemporary audience. Yeah. So, and I consider you as like a front runner or the model in our industry in that way, because you've been really dedicating your career and life to audience engagement in many, many innovative ways. And so, Jeeyoon, I want to start by reading this quote from your book, Whenever You're Ready. I totally enjoyed the book, by the way. And so let me quote, "Having a mission beyond just fulfilling my own life's need or self-satisfaction was one of the key incentives for me to keep going despite difficulties," end quote. So it is clear to me, and I'm sure to many readers and fans, that you're such a messenger. And so what is your mission statement in 2023 after we've been through this, pandemic as a pianist in person? So where are you right now?
I'm actually very grateful that you mentioned that our mission changes over time, and I think it should. We have to be nimble and be able to change with the time. But I think it didn't change much for me. I would say I'm a classical pianist who strives for a unique connection. That word is very important to me, whether that is a public speaking or private conversation or teaching piano, recording, or piano performance on stage. I believe that I can make a difference in the world to spread the beauty of classical music one person at a time.
Wow. Thank you. That's very well said. By the way, I love the background. Are you tuning in from your home studio?
Yes. This is my place that I practice every single day. And, I don't know, you can see there's nothing but piano. That even the couch, it doesn't even serve as a couch. So for me, it's that empty space that simplify my environment. Just emphasizing the important thing, which is the piano, only thing in this space, really helps me to focusing on my life.
Wow. And with the beautiful paintings and photos in the background, what an inspiring space. Now, what's the secret to finding out your own mission in life?
I think, first we all have to believe that we all have our own unique reason why we exist in this universe. I think we all have to start from that belief. It may or may not anything to do with your jobs. So from that belief, I think it's important to know ourselves. What do I like? What are the things that makes my heart pumping? What is my tendencies, preferences, personalities? What is important to me? What are the things that I do gain energy by doing, not draining? What makes me in the status of flow, feel like I lose time and time doesn't even exist. Then I will turn that into what I enjoy the most, into what I can do well, collecting necessary skills and trainings and perspectives that I think we devote ourselves to improve ourselves in anything. We are more invested in that. Not only we get better, but also our enjoyment grows. So the next step would be then ask, how can you help one person in this world? Not thousands, but that one person with that very thing that you love and you're trying to be better. And I think that is your mission, that finding who you are, then in connection with others, then to contribute to the world in the way who you are.
Wow. Thank you. Because I think at one point, you practice so much as a pianist and you get stuck, right? And you feel like, what are all these hours of practice? And where am I going to from where I am? Yeah.
Right. I think we have to remember there's a reason why you love playing piano. And we're so bombarded with environments of a competitiveness or other things that you forget that and then focusing on other thing. But if you really listen to yourself, the very thing is music. If that very thing is piano, then you can uncover the layering out and then try to be in tune with yourself.
I think discovering that secret such an early, stage in your life, especially your career, I think that's a big plus. I mean, it's a lot of journaling and a lot of, maybe for some, it's a lot of therapy to do.
Probably.
Yeah. So also you mentioned in the book that you feel deeply connected with your listeners in the very moment of sharing music. And at one point you realized that you wanted a concert to be a shared experience, not a passive participation, traditional, you'll come out and bow and then go backstage. So, but when did you start realizing the love of how creatively you want to engage with your audience?
I think when you mentioned, and people actually even don't know me, what I do, would think that I go do such a crazy thing. But I think at the end, I'm just trying to get to core of what I do. It may be just talking about the music, but not about in the historian perspective, but actually what it means to me emotionally. And I might say, I feel like I'm swimming in a pond. There's nobody, but I hear this nature. It's peaceful and quiet. And that might set one piece that I'm about to play. I'm not talking about when Schumann born in the 18 something. And I think what I realize is that I grew up in a very unrealistic setting, which is surrounded by pianists, surrounded by classical musicians. My audience were professors and students who memorize all the Beethoven sonatas by opus number, and they know. But then when I went into the real, actual audience, they don't even care. They don't know anything about it. And then when I play certain pieces, and in my head, I was thinking like, I made that mistake. I made a memory mistake there. I could have done that technically better. Doesn't make any sense to them. More important that I realize is they want to connect with me. And I often thought about my grandma, who has no interest in classical music. She was actually really into this classical Korean song that is called trot. And, if I was thinking, if I were playing a piece of music for grandma, I would not start, Grandma, Beethoven, born in 18 something, and then we're talking about, Grandma, I play this piece like, oh my gosh, I love it, because then I will really come into a compassionate and kind but loving way that I want to so share this piece of music with my grandma that may not care, but then she also, I believe, that want to connect with me. So then in that place of loving and friendly gesture made a huge difference to the real audience. And I taste that in the outside of academia. Of course, when we prepare for the degree recitals, we go out to the retirement center or some other settings that play. And every time I play some other settings, I feel like the audience are different. Like, is this a real, or is this that get a good grade in the academia is a real? I got really confused because at the end, I have to come out of this unrealistic laboratory setting to real world. But then that transition was so huge for me in my mind that I have to change. My world, unfortunately, the world I live in, peer pianists or musicians or even my teachers would not change. But I have to come down from this pedestal of classical music, but come down to the real people, and not from the person who knows, but from the person who enjoyed it so much and can't wait to share in a meaningful way. And then when I tried to that little by little, then I saw the connection amplify in the degree that I can even measure in any way. And I think at the end, they helped me to be a better pianist, better messenger, and people actually get it. I mean, it's not like I'm not selling something that it's not sellable. I am selling the most sellable content. Chopin, Rachmaninoff, they will die. They will love it. But they just don't know how to get to it. But we know. So I have to find a way to connect it, the dots for them.
Right. I totally understand the part of they don't know how to get there, because I live in a big city, New York City, and I teach students who are not really the musical connoisseur, right? Mm-hmm. They're just, doing this. Most of them are doing it for hobby, seriously, but hobby. But they live so close to Carnegie Hall, for example, but they hardly go there because they don't know what to listen to. They don't know where to start. What's the story behind it? And
I think our generation, sometimes find the classical, not sometimes, all the time, classical music is boring, or that's something for grandmas, not for me. But then when I bring my friends who's non-musician come to my living room and like sit and ask them to sit down, like, I'm working on this piece, I want to play for you, and this means something, this heartache, I don't know what Brahms was thinking, but this I feel, and then I play it, and they were like, what is this? Like, I never heard anything like that. I mean, they're the one who listen to pop music, everywhere they go, but then they get it immediately, So I believe that just they need a better context, and we need to give that context as a musician. And I think that context is not that like fancy thing. It doesn't have to be, but it's really talking about the core message that we feel as a musician, and just talking, but then actually practicing the delivery of it, so that you don't really get into the boring lecture recital, but more really like coming from the empathetic mind to share. And I think if you do that, people genuinely connect with that music, and then they become a fan of classical music. And once they become a fan, then they can go explore chamber music, other whatever, the avant-garde of classical music. But first of most, we need to get them into this corner first. And by doing it, it's more about really nothing fancy, but openly talking about why you love this.
Now, your way sounds like a two-way, so it's not just you giving them this performance, but also sounds like you're also receiving something from them. So by engaging with your audiences, how did they change your life or perspectives?
I think every performance has actually changed my life in a small or big way that I cannot measure. But I know every performance is tremendously difficult, and after every performance, I gain something. I'm stronger. And, all the students will say, I practiced so much and I did never make that mistake, but in front of someone so-and-so, I made this mistake and that mistake. And you know what? That imperfection, but yet alive, feeling alive, also all of your senses are like heightened. That's why we do this music live. Music's supposed to be connected through souls to souls and in that space. And I believe that music completes the circle when we play and share live. And I think that's why every time, whenever I perform, it's difficult, but that's the function of the music, that I give, but then I receive. And, the most beautiful concert, or the most, I would not say perfect, but the most rewarding concerts, it's not last mistake concerts, but then the concerts that I felt the most engaged with the music, with myself in the music, and inevitably audience receive as well. And I think always I feel that I do something completely unimaginable in the concert if I'm open to it. If I'm open for the color to be more different, or in this way, if I try even harder for certain section to be closed differently, if I experiment on stage, then because I am different on stage, the music responds differently. And in that very moment, I gained something that I can't measure in words. So I remember the very first concert in graduate study that I play Chopin Fantasy, or certain parts of that Schumann Fantasy, sorry, and that part moved me, and I felt like, oh my gosh, so beautiful,
Wow.
so beautiful, like it's me but not me. That environment, that piano, that people, that hall, everything gave me that another layer of life, another dimension of life, which I become a fuel for my life. So I think that it's complete circle. But people thank me all the time. Like, I really, appreciate what you do. I loved your concert. That, all of those compliments are wonderful, and I believe truly appreciate their feedback. But at the end of the day, I gain the most.
Wow. That's very beautiful. Thank you. So you are an award-winning pianist, recording artist, author, educator, YouTuber, public speaker, and podcaster. And did I miss anything? I mean, we're going to talk more about your career later, but, honestly, I'm curious to know about your YouTube channel because, I have my YouTube channel with this podcast too. So your YouTube channel, it's like a lifestyle channel as a concert pianist and very entertaining too. And you have over 3,000 subscribers. And so when did you decide to start engaging with your audience on YouTube, and what motivated you to do this?
I think, at some point, I think in 2019 or 18, everybody was talking about, you should do the YouTube. I don't know, they still talk about it because I'm already in YouTube world. I don't hear it anymore, but everybody was talking about, you got to start YouTube, But back in my mind, maybe, but not for me, in front of camera, I definitely had that fear or conflicts within me that I didn't want to be in front of a camera. Definitely, there's a challenge that it's against my personality. Actually, podcast fits me better. It's just like talking about, intimate conversation, or writing fits me better. But then camera or something about it was very challenging. But then I was thinking in my head, because it's so challenging, because I felt the conflicts, I had to face it. At least at first. So I tried to, I think right before pandemic, 4 or 5 months prior to quarantine started, I was actually in New York and thought, maybe I record something on my camera, my phone, and see how it feels like. So I did it. And then surprisingly, I found out that I can just talk to the camera like a friend. So then I realized, okay, that's better than I thought. I will try a little bit more. But then pandemic hit. And by the time that pandemic hit, I already produced maybe 10 or 15 videos that I already have cameras and kind of knew how to edit and everything. And by that point, everybody had to transition into digital world. And by that time, I was already doing it. And so for me, it was not transition, but something like, oh my gosh, I'm already in it. And I was like a step ahead of others. And then that's where I felt that the power of digital world, that I could connect with people that I can never connect in Peru, Malaysia, that people actually unrealistic to come to my concert in person. But then there were real connection that I could make in online world in a meaningful way. So then I started to look at the world differently. Like, okay, the pandemic happens and the world gonna end. What am I gonna do as a performing artist or a pianist? What does that mean? But then I found hope in a digital world that I could still connect through music, through in the just different platform. And it required me to be resilient a lot more. And I did weekly live streaming concerts. I think I was the most active during pandemic in the digital world than any, right now I'm a little more struggling because of the time and everything. But I think at that moment, I really felt the power of digital world that I think is at this point for everyone, but especially for musicians, existing in a digital world, it's not an option anymore, but must.
I agree with you. Yes, totally. So to my listeners, I want to officially introduce Jeeyoon Kim let me just read a little brief bio. So Jeeyoon began studying the piano when she was 4, and her love of music propelled her through her undergraduate studies and piano performance in her native Korea. After moving to the United States, she received her Master of Music and Doctor of Music Arts in piano performance with distinction from one of the most prestigious music schools in the United States, the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. Jeeyoon has shared her fresh perspective on classical piano performance with audiences at venues such as Carnegie Hall in New York City, Chamber Music Society in San Francisco, and the Stradivari Society in Chicago. During the pandemic lockdown in 2020, she wrote and published her first book, Whenever You're Ready, offering readers a personal glimpse into her life as a concert pianist. This self-help book in a concert-style structure shares wisdom and insights gained from Ji-yoon's musical experience. Ji-yoon currently resides in San Diego, where she happily practices her piano daily and maintains a studio full of dedicated piano students and surfs each morning at sunrise. Wow. You are also a surfer among many other things. Is there anything you cannot do? Tell me a little bit about being a surfer. I'm curious.
Well, I don't think there's not many classical musician surfers, to be honest.
Yeah, I've never heard. Yes,
because that's so against of our disciplined mind in many ways. Because in surfing, you have to let go so much. I want to drill so much in surfing. I want to get the trainer and get the perfect form and how to do surf. But then in surfing, you just have to wait for nature to give you waves. And you have to ride that wave when nature gives you and respond to, it's almost like a jazz. You have to always improvise and you have to play like a child. But in my mind, I want to practice surfing to be better. So there's a really conflict within me, which is helpful for me to be doing so totally different thing, with a piano, what I do. And in piano, easily I can stay home for days without even foot outside. I'll be happily being indoor. But surfing, you have to be in nature. You have to, then you realize that life is about connecting with nature, really brings you to certain place that nothing else can take you. It's like walking nature or hiking. In surfing is the same thing. When you're in the middle of ocean in 6 o'clock in the morning, you see pelicans catching fish for the breakfast or dolphins swim by, and you kind of feel like everything is fine.
Wow, you're living the life. This episode is presented in collaboration with our good friends at Forte, a free alternative to Zoom, purpose-built for music teachers. I am happy to announce that Forte will always be free for music teachers, no strings attached. That's right. Forte offers features optimized for classical music lessons, including audio quality far superior to existing platforms and allowing you to hear every nuance of your student's instrument. Their colleagues at the Royal College of Music, Aspen Music Festival, Curtis Institute, and Berklee College of Music have even used Forte in their own programs. Forte's mission is to radically expand access to high-quality music education worldwide. Forte always puts teachers and their students first. This means you can use Forte with your own students for free forever, and Forte will soon introduce paid features allowing you to connect with new students around the world. Sign up for free today at fortelessons.com or click the link in the description. Well, you mentioned that you, in the bio, you started your musical journey at 4. So how do you discover a love for piano?
I think I'm very thankful for my parents to put me in this piano institute when I was 4 years old. But my parents was not a tiger mom or never really pushed me to do anything. They were actually very busy to their business, and it was my responsibility to go to the institute every single day. And they never really told me to do anything, but I remember my first lesson, which was like 5-finger pen or whatever. I don't know, remember what was it, but I can just assume what that was. It would be C major something, up and down. But then my teacher play accompaniment part, But at that moment, I feel like I'm a concert pianist already. I was so in love with the rush of sound coming out of these black and white keys. Although I was just simply moving my key, up and down, but I felt that the power of the instrument that gave me, and I fell in love with it instantly. And I think my parents not pushing me, but I was really drawn into music, and I was a happy musical kid, always want to sing. I think I knew right there and then I would be musician. Sometimes I feel like I chose piano, but I often believe the instrument chooses you. So piano chose me, and flute chose someone else, trumpet chooses someone else. So piano suits me, and I am very biased, but I still believe piano is the queen of the instrument.
Amen.
It can be independent, interdependent, solo, chamber, concerto,
Right.
intimate yet powerful. There's no other instrument can imitate orchestra, yet most intimate sound that you can create. So, I mean, it's a chameleon of the instrument, and I'm so grateful that piano happened to choose me.
So what was your training like? So since then, so you had a intensive training, I'm sure, in South Korea. I think you're from Busan. Yeah. And then you went to even undergraduate through undergraduate you went there. So tell me just a little briefly about your training. What was it like? Was it really intense? How was your state of being there?
I think, I think it will be Japan as well. Any Asian country, especially Korea, very competitive. No matter what you do, is competitive. So, but I was actually competitiveness free until I think it's, second grade of middle school. Because I was just going to institute, doing my thing, and practiced it, but I was not aware of it. But then one day, I think my teacher or my mom told me, you need to go to art high school in order to major in piano. So like, okay, but in order to do that, you have to audition to art high school. Then you have to change teacher to more serious. Then you really have to commit. And like, okay, I guess I commit. And then I did not realize what that commitment meant. But that commitment meant that I have to survive if I make just simple, like wrong notes in the Chopin etude, you are going to place, low ranking in every piano exam in our art high school. Everyone plays similar pieces, and then you can direct comparison of, so-and-so plays faster, so-and-so plays more cleanly, So like that was my environment at art high school that was very competitive, and perfection is required, polished performance. And I guess in that setting, I try really not to be bombarded with that comparison to each other, because at that time I was really having a difficult time personal life, and my parents divorcing, so I could not afford myself to be in that mindset, but really survive on my own personal life, which was blessing in disguise at the end, because piano was oasis for me, not a place that I had to win. So then afterwards, I went in Korea. National University is also much cheaper. So I only had two choices, either going to Busan or going to Seoul University, which is the best school in Korea. But I failed to getting into Seoul University, and I thought my career as a pianist is crashed. Definitely, that's a failure. There's no other way around it. I didn't get in. But then later, I realized that staying in Busan, which is my hometown, it's not that exciting. I went to university from my own home. Nothing exciting. But then I was in the full scholarship, so I did not pay any money on undergrad studies. And I feel like I gained that perspective. I hibernate and prepare myself for the bigger world, extended studies afterwards. And I could pace myself in non-competitive environment again. I think if I went to Seoul University, then 20 piano major, whoever they're very competitive. Again, I would really maybe burn out. Who knows? But as you know, the study in classical music goes for a long time. by the time you go undergraduate, you're already playing piano 16 years already of your life, right? In 20s, you're already been playing 16 years. But then beyond that is life just starting. Even education barely started. But then everybody quit after undergrad even because I'm done with this. You know what I mean? So
I totally.
yeah, I feel like I gained that energy. I actually regenerated during my undergrad just to rethink what I love and do I want this? And at the same time, I was just taking my time, which is not, it's a luxurious thing that I thought it was such a, not fun. You know, at that time, I did not like it. Why I'm in Busan still, you know, I've been here for my life, but I'm still here, you know, but I'm very thankful now.
Then that probably, I don't know, staying there led you to maybe have the energy to think about coming to the United States, no? Yeah. And then, tell me.
You know, I always knew that I have to go outside of Korea. Obviously, classical music is Western music, and I need to learn something from outside of Korea. So I always thought of it, but in my head, I thought either going to Germany or USA. But I wasn't sure in my undergrad, but I just knew that I would go somewhere outside. And so before making that decision, I lived in Germany for 2 months. And I lived in about a month in America, actually exchange students in undergrad and South Carolina in all places. So I tasted before I make a decision. And from that taste of life in Germany and USA, I've learned that in Germany, I could tell that, oh, well, Schubert must be walking on this street, or, you know, Beethoven was living, you know, all of that was so close to the tradition, yet I was foreigner. For the first time, I felt that I am Asian. What is Asian? I was always Jeeyoon. What is Asian? But I felt that I'm Asian every single day, which I realized that I can't get over that. Hopefully this is better now in you know, Europe and in Germany. But at the time, I really felt that for the first time ever in my life that I am not Jeeyoon, but I'm Asian. And that I decided also German was so difficult. I cannot even fake German. And I decided, okay, USA is the way to go. And then I Yahoo, you know, search at that time, what is the best university in America? And there's Juilliard and Indiana University in Midwest, and then USC in West Coast. So I auditioned all three, and I actually got in all, but I chose to go to Indiana.
Indiana is a wonderful school. Everybody wants to go there. Yeah. And how was the experience at Indiana University? It was like a really straightforward, all glorious.
Oh, well, yes.
Wow, that's great.
Very fantasy way. It is a fantasy world. That because of that reason, it has a pros and cons because you are detached from the real world again. It was really special place. Bloomington is special place in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. This is one of the best school in the field. Then there's the best music, you know, library, and the teachers all over the world. You know, Pressler, Stocker, George Shebak, and all of the great pedagogues there. And then everybody is, you know, talking about classical music. The 4 different concert hall has at least 2 or 3 different, you know, concert grand Steinway to choose from. I can nerd out about Beethoven Sonata with the friends for all night long and doesn't feel anything different about it. And all about classical music environment, even for the, you know, people who live locally, very into opera and whatever. So I didn't want to wake up from that dream. I did not realize that was a dream and fantasy. And well, I did it for a while, but I'm glad that I sensed that world, even for a time period.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, to be able to experience like we all need that sort of experience as an artist, right? Yeah. Then you go to the real world. So, yeah. So speaking of real world, so tell us about what you experienced after you graduated from, Indiana University. Was it all glorious? Like all the job lined up and gigs lined up and then with the red carpet? Is that what it is?
I wish. I never actually thought about it, which is a very naive thinking. But I didn't even think that as naive because my teacher even didn't mention it. My teacher was all about how to make this Chopin better, how to phrase Bach better, all of those things, and we never talked about the world beyond my study. And I'm thankful for that, to live in the fantasy world so that I can really be my own artist in that time and dive deep into the music. But yet I was so detached, and I thought maybe at some point thought something will work out. Something will. I'm doctor, but then when I get the certificate of Dr. Kim, only thing different was that people can call me doctor, but then same morning, same sun goes up, and yesterday, today, it's the same. It's like nothing changed. Somebody knock on my door, Jeeyoon, let's tour to the world. Or, the job application for, after I become a doctor, I thought maybe professor is very secure track, and naively thought that that's what I wanted, or that's what I should pursue, and that's safe, and maybe that was a dream of my mom. I don't know. So I pursued without thinking much because but then after rejection, I was like, I felt so small that just with my resume, like I studied so much, but then that's become just one line. She got their doctorate degree in Indiana University. That's it. That's it. Like what? I did so much. I'm a more diverse person than just one line. But how could I share that? But then I pursue and pursue. I don't know how long. I think it was after that I actually went back to school to study piano pedagogy in master's degree. By that time, people thought I was crazy to go back to school, but it was a genuine curiosity of how I could teach better, because I wanted to teach 4 years old as well as the most advanced Chopin pieces. But I could do that advanced pieces, but I had no idea how to start 4 years old.
Right.
And that gap was so much, and it bothered me so much. So in the meantime, when I'm figuring out my life, let me get to learn about this gap, because I wanted to be a better teacher. So in the meantime, I was applying, everywhere. I'm hoping that maybe this degree will help me to get to another job. Like, what else do you need? I get doctorate and then another degree in pedagogy. I'm a dynamo in terms of a degree can go. But then still, no, and then the final rejection that I got was so close. I was final 3. And by that point, I was thinking I got this. I've got it. They should want me. Like, I am the one for you, But then I still didn't get it. And that was a hard no. That was hard to take at that time. It was in San Diego, one of the university. And that time, though, because the no was so close, but yet still no was no at the end, and I started to think, wait a second, do I even want to be a professor? I don't want to be in some foreign land, start from that letter up. For what, And I started to really question my motivation of becoming a professor. And then more I searched for it, then I actually like the financial security comes with it, not the job itself. I really like the idea of it, but I really would hate to teach Piano 101 for every year. I would hate to write emails after emails, committee members, and all of those job follows that I was suffocating. It's not actually academia, although I was there academia all my life, but I hate it. I hate that structure. So then I I am gonna close the door completely. Not just adjunct to hoping that I get into some lecture position. None of that. I'm just gonna, no. Would that be okay? And I thought, it sounds fairly miserable for me, for my personality to stuck in somewhere just for what, So from then I was started to think, okay, now I'm still jobless, still like nothing. And from there, I started my own business of teaching studio from the knowledge that I gained from pedagogy classes and all things, and I took it as a really serious business. And I opened Dr. Kim Piano Academy in the thinking that I'm only going to take 5 students because I want to do something else too. But I started very legit business model and policies and everything. And that was one channel. But then in my mind, I want to now devote myself as a pianist. How can I do that? And that's one of the way I thought as a first step. One of the first step is that I want to create an album. I always wanted to have an album, but how one starts album is that the Deutsche Grammophon have to contact me. So they're supposed to contact me, but they didn't, So they're like, I want to make album. I have idea. I wanted to create an album that collection of all my dear friends, that one of the dearest to my heart, so that I could play every concert as encore, always, like among all of my studies, those pieces always come weaving into my life, come and go, So I maybe 12 pieces of those, and I want to collect it, and I called it as a 10 more minutes because it's a represent for me the longing for not 10 years, 10 days, but 10 more minutes. And with these pieces that I always wanted to long for more. And so I wanted to present this idea to the world. And that was also mind-boggling idea. Like, why would, I'm not starving to death, but why I'm asking for money for others to, so it was very uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable place to ask for money for my album. But I decided, I am an artist, that I'm contributing with what I can do to create this. It's not for me, but to create a beauty into the world. And people donate to the art. They can donate to the symphony or this organization. They can contribute to my project too. So I was kind of like started to like mentally train myself and started to talk to the world that I have this idea. It would be wonderful if you can, be part of it. Join me, join me this experience, this process. And I did that through Kickstarter. That was $30,000 pledge, and that felt like, a lot of money, And who could do that? And I even talking to my friends was difficult. Like I was like, I have a song project, but I don't know if you can do it. I was very shy about it. But the more and more I talk about it, and I feel like it's okay. You don't have to even just give me like a go for it. Jeeyoon, you're doing great. That is enough too. Then it became successful. It's miracle itself. I mean, there's many miracles, but one of those are that kind of miracle that because I do my best, but I'm not in control over that outcome. But the outcome was successful, so I'm thankful. But I made that move. I was vulnerably in front of people that wanted, and the interesting thing was that people donate even $1 for this album felt like it's their project. Project became everybody's project, and it felt like this is becoming a playground with so many people together. I shared that, now I'm in New York to recording this project, wish me luck. I this, now I'm doing, cover the photography, They were there every step of this album, and they become like faithful, lifelong fans. And then, in the similar time frame about that time, one of my friend came to the Carnegie Hall and went to Michiko Chida's concert and gave me this postcard and asked Michiko Chida and say, can you write it, why not, on top of the postcard? And she said, why not? And then it's like, yes, please, why not for my friend who's pianist? And so she gave me that postcard signed by Michiko Chida and saying, why not? And until that time, Carnegie Hall is something like so far away. When, like everybody's like, when are you going to play Carnegie Hall? Ha, ha, ha. Like, it's more like a joke. It'll be nice, but then it's so far, why, how, or do I even need it? I justify myself. And then when I look at that postcard, I felt like, why not? Yeah, yeah, why not? I mean, it's not like I've done worse, you know. It's just another concert, but how? I was genuinely curious. So I called the next morning at Carnegie Hall booking office, and I called 9 o'clock when they just opened the office, and I called, and then someone get up, you know, get the phone like immediately, just like a New Yorker, you know, and they hello, and by Carnegie Hall booking office, and I said, you know, you don't know me, but I am classical pianist. I'm just wondering, how can one play in Carnegie Hall? And I was like, when I said that words, I felt like how ridiculous it might sound. At the same time, how many calls this person gets a day, you know, all of those above. And then she was talking about long list of things that what you need. You need a presenter, you need the credentials, so you need to like, you know, like whatever that was. It was like a long 10 minutes of she told me what I might need it. And then I hang up. And when I hang up and looking at the wall and thinking like, at that very moment, I felt that there's some light turn on. And like, oh, this is not fantasy. There's the steps. If I follow the steps, I play Carnegie Hill. Just like that, right? It's not a just like in La La Land. So then I was thinking like, what was the steps that she mentioned? Like, what do I need? And I made a phone calls, whatever that I needed. And, you know, to make a long story short, I was in the Carnegie Hall debut concert with the people who donated so much in 10 more minutes Kickstarter project from Indiana, from San Diego, from San Francisco. They wanted to fly
Oh my goodness.
Carnegie Hall. I have no connection in New York. I don't know anybody, but it was sold out. With the people who wanted to be there. And then in the backstage, I could hear the chatter noise, and I knew that became sold out. On the day, I knew. And I felt like, who am I who deserve this love, who deserve this? And it felt like it's not my life. It's for them. It's for them. I need to give 1000% to give back what they gave me. And when I went onto the stage, as always, there's a microphone, no program. People are very confused. What is she gonna play? And then I get onto the stage and on the microphone and said, "Welcome to my dream." And that moment was dreamlike, but it was reality. But it felt like a dream. And people were walking into my dream. And that's how I feel like my life has been. Yes, I made a phone call. Yes, I put the idea into the world about Kickstarter, my album. But then when I did that, there's another force carried me. Then I go and I go. But the first step was always me. The first vulnerable, courageous move was always me. But then when I did vulnerably open myself, expose myself, there are people that carried me. And that's a magic. That's the part that I can't do it on my own.
Wow. Beautiful. What a beautiful story. And you're coming to New York again in June,
Yes.
right? Yes. Yes. We're going to
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, that's great. We're going to talk more about it later, but that's so amazing. Yes. Maybe I need to get a ticket and come and see you. Hey, friends and listeners. The Piano Pod is in its third season, thanks to all of you for watching or listening to every episode since the launch in 2020. I started this show with a simple question I have had in mind for quite some time, which is, how can we as classical pianists and music educators present the beautiful tradition of classical music to the 21st century audience in a fun, contemporary, and engaging way? It's been an incredible journey for the last 3 years, and I love what I do through this podcast, providing a platform for pianists and educators to think and discuss freely without any judgment about how we can keep the classical music industry thriving and relevant in this constantly and rapidly changing world. Now more than ever, I need your financial support so that I can continue my work by bringing you highly valuable content bi-weekly by interviewing groundbreakers in the industry. Your support will go directly to all the costs of the Piano Pod, such as yearly subscription to the podcasting platform, software I use for high quality recording sessions, and tech gears, as well as all the hours I spend researching and audio video editing. You can make one-time donation or monthly pledge by clicking the PayPal link in the show notes or go to the Pianopod's website at thepianopod.com. As a thank you, you will receive the Pianopod's fun logo sticker in the mail. So please support my show today and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, continue listening, and tell your friends and colleagues about the Pianopod. Let's continue with this episode. Then you've been really candid, about your success, but also sometimes mistakes or failures. That's part of it, right? But that's the juicy part of our lives that makes our lives really thriving and alive. And then I totally enjoyed reading your book whenever you're ready. Actually, before, I knew of you from YouTube, one of the algorithms and the triggers, and I saw your video. But then afterwards, during the COVID time, I got an email from probably your publicist or whoever to reach out to me because we started a podcast. And then you just published a book, right? And then we didn't get to interview you till now. I didn't get to, but I was reading the book during that time, and it was very, very good. And then starting out sort of, it's intended for all the readers, not just limited to pianists. So the way you're explaining, this book is like a movement of sonata, and then it goes like this. And then in each chapter, you have this sort of exercise for readers to do certain things. And then the first few chapters were easy to read. Then it gets actually quite deeper, philosophical almost. Yeah. And the way of life, right? So, I and then I was able to reread again, to prepare for this interview, and it was very encouraging. And then there are some topics that are a little uncomfortable to tackle, but I want to go there today too. So I hope that's okay. Right. Can you tell me how this is structured, and then what motivated you, what inspired you to write this book?
I think, the whenever you're ready is where it comes from is that, every concert stage, often there's a stage manager holding that door to the stage and say, whenever you're ready. And then I look at that person and thinking, am I ready? Will I ever be ready? But then I'm thinking deep in that moment and create a courage and strength within myself and make a decision to walk towards the stage. And that, in order to make that transition into the split second of whenever you're ready to, okay. In order to make that transition, I have to do so million things daily basis. It's not just easy, okay, I'm ready, go. It's so much of a mind training, so much of a how lifestyle reflects to that decision making. And so that I wanted this book to be like a written concert. So that's why I structured in such a way the movements. Each movement has deal with a different topic. And the first movement about like perseverance, discipline, and then about second movement is negativity, and then creativity on the third movement, and fourth movement is about connection with oneself or others, and the fifth movement about the body itself, the environment. And then in between, there's intermission where I get to be a missionary of classical music again and talk about one of my favorite pieces. And there's a QR code there for them to go to listen to it. And then there's encore at the end. And what I was thinking is that whenever I prepare for a concert, it feels like preparing for a life. And I often think that we all have a stage called a life. Whenever we have a difficult phone call, when we have to face the difficult decisions, a difficult conversation, embark something new, unknown, life challenges us, but that very moment, like you still, I'm gonna do it. That is what I wanted to give the sense of inspiration, dose of it, strength to the readers in their performance of life whenever you are ready. And it's not like go do it, but it's like I'm giving you a moment, and so when you're ready, you go. But it's on you. So I feel like this book was intended for musicians. I think they get it because they live that. But more importantly, for other people through the lens of classical musician, and by you going through my life, they realize, oh, that is a life. That I do have a stage called life. So that I wanted this book to be not from someone who knows better, went through more, but more as a fellow friends and fellow human being who struggles as much. And as if we are sitting in a cafe, very friendly, light, but empathetic, warm, honest, vulnerable, so that we all go through this. It's not only you, me too. But this worked, actually. This really helped. Maybe you tried. So that's why my voice is not like more dominant, but more of, hey, did you try that? It worked for me. Then you're like, you know, many of these tools that I mentioned in the book already. But because I say it, because you feel like I'm your friend, you think like, oh, maybe I try meditation. I know that's good, but maybe something out there. You know, that was my goal, for people to remind that these tools are already always there. But from my delivery, just like classical music, through my performance, they get it. Maybe there's one or two more people, they pick up on those life tools to make their life better.
In the first movement of the book, you know, and I really appreciate you for clarifying the myths about becoming or being a pianist. Like everybody says, oh, you're so talented, you can just play on the fly, but you have no idea how much of a work, how much of ups and downs of life to go through to get there, right? So, and I love the quote, it is not willpower, but habit that makes things happen. Because, you know, willpower is exhausting. And then that's why a lot of people quit. But the delayed gratification is a really difficult lesson to learn and teach also. And so where is a good place to start learning this important lesson in life, like, or delayed gratification, meaning building a good habit?
I think it's early as possible, which is right now. It's good to place to learn. I think it's important to know that every learning has the learning curves. Like boiling water, it wouldn't boil until 100 Celsius. But all along, it has been boiling, but we don't feel it. You know, but we have to believe that we are making progress, even though we don't see a progress. And I think that is really important for us to remind ourselves. I get frustrated too, because I practiced this much. I thought it would get better, but it's not yet. But then it's not yet, never. It's not never, but it's not yet. So growth mindset is something that we can train ourselves. It's not like you have or you don't, but it's I can make it better. Maybe not yet, but I'm making it, you know? So I think focusing on the system, which is a habit, is the key, because if I have to think when I'm going to practice a day, every single day, have to think about it, it's exhausting already, because my day, I have to do this, I have to do that. When I'm going to do it, it takes already, like, I'm exhausted even thinking about it. But if I have a habit of just a certain amount, not all the time, but certain amount of practice is right after breakfast, I'm going to practice, let's say, an hour or two, then that is secured no matter what, because I became a habit. After breakfast, even though I have these conflicts, I don't want to practice, I'm already sit down and play piano. And, you know, it's funny, people would think that it's my willpower to makes me practice every day. But it comes from I know why. I know already own why. Why is I love piano, right? But I don't question that why anymore once I own it. I don't question like, do I want to practice? Do I love piano? Like, of course, you love someone today and you don't love someone tomorrow because, someone so acted this way. But it's an old couple. They love each other. They know. Even though they hate each other, they cook for themselves, each other. They do things for each other. They do it by showing the action. Not feeling is so flimsy thing. You would focusing on, oh, do I love piano? Do I love this person? The answer is that it will change every single day. Even every hour, it might change. So someday we like this and someday we don't. Someday we're angry, sometimes we're happy, but joy, but sad. All of it is so flimsy. Our emotions are not reliable thing. Once you own the love, why? Then even though I would think that I hate practicing, but I ignore that chatter because I don't question that. I don't question the core meaning, but I sit down and play. Once I sit down and practice it, 99%, 99 time, I love it. Not maybe first 5 minutes, it's still there's a conflict, but then I get into certain section like, oh, this needs some cleaning up. Oh, this is nice, More likely 30 minutes pass by, an hour easy. And then after an hour, I feel good because I overcome myself. I made music. I actually enjoyed it. But if I question it when I do it, then I already adjusted and I don't think I would keep up with piano practicing. I'm 42 years old. I started when I was 4. 38 years of practicing every day, forget it, right? I mean, ask someone to do something constantly all the time other than eating and sleeping. This is not major human, instinct thing, So for me, it's very important to make that transition easy as possible. I have to prioritize it and try not to think as much as possible, at least the first section of the practice. Then if I wanted to add more, some days less. So then whatever you wanted to add on to your life, if that is important to you, then own that why. Really ask seriously why, because you can't go back and forth. So let's say that the exercise is important to you, then you really want to make that working out as a part of your life. That you don't question that you want to do it, will not want to do. Once you own it, then make a system. Let's say you wanted to, work out every single morning. When? Like when after wake up or before breakfast, then make it a small, very, very small amount, like 10 minutes of stretching and until you get that habit into your system for at least a month or two. Don't push yourself too much because you have to have a longevity of a lifestyle, not like a month gym every single day and then from the February everybody's like go back to their couch. If you want something in your life, you have to start slow. But then what I really emphasize is the 2-day rule, which is you can skip a day, but not 2 days in a row. I do skip practice sometime, but never 2 days in a row. So that rule gives me some room to wiggle, but then ask myself gently back into the track, and then also not too hard on myself. Yes, you can skip a day, it's fine. The world still continues. But what is important is that you gain yourself again and continue. So I think it's very, very important that you own why and then create a system that hopefully that system is actually right after you always do, which is eating is always good to tag along, or drinking coffee or something already existing habit, you build on to it. And then make it small, very small. If you want to read a book, just read up one page, not a whole chapter, And then try every time you finish, we always feel good. Like an hour of practice afterwards, I feel great. Then I remember that feeling savory. Just take a moment, think, how amazing that feel after workout or after the practice. So every time you feel that resistance, I don't want to work out or I don't want to practice, go ahead to feel that joy. Think that joy, that moment, I'm going to feel amazing afterwards. Then it will be easier for you to go there. And then the truth is that we're not in the marathon. You're not gonna become Olympian by working out. You're not, even though there is a miniature goal or long-term goal of whatever we do, or piano practicing, or maybe concert coming up. But the real truth is that I love playing piano. I am playing piano. I'm expressing my love of piano every day by doing it, which means I'm loving this very day. I think that's the key. You're not going somewhere. You're thinking so much of a goal, then you lose why you're doing it. The reason you're doing it because you want to do the very thing. So thinking about the activity and the reason we are doing it is so that you love your today.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I aim into that. Now, so creating a habit of action, but also movement too. You talk about creating a good habit of your mind, guard your mind. And then, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, negativity in our industry. So sometimes I have quite a, good group of students, advanced students, and then they get more harsh criticism than others who are doing it for fun. That hurts my feelings so much. Now, there is a constructive feedback, of course, and then everybody should get that. But there's this insult that is just not really necessary. And then sometimes people say, oh, don't be so naive. It's just a little feedback to help you. But this is actually not really a feedback. It's not really helpful for anybody, when something like this to happen. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think when you're young, it's definitely harder because you're forming yourself, your mind. And if you have very harsh teacher, which is often in music, unfortunately, the higher their level is harsh they get, or parents, the more harsh parents, that is very difficult. So I really empathize that the young people who go through it. But I think we also because this is the piano community as well, the dear pianists, the dear piano community, let's not be a nerd. It doesn't matter how so-and-so plays fast or this tempo or how they phrasing. At the end of it, it doesn't matter. But I find that the more classical musicians ourselves are such a hard critic to each other, they degraded each other and saying, oh, she's not that good. I don't know why she got that. Or, oh, well, so and so win the competition, which means that there's one last position in your life. Or, that scarcity mindset really is toxic. There is enough in this world. That world love goes around. All the things you want to do beyond your imagination if you make that action. So that if we start to compare each other, competition to each other, that's where it becomes toxic. Whether the so-and-so fellow pianist, that advanced students think that, oh, well, he plays I don't know, it's really sound bad, but he won that competition. I don't know what the judge was thinking. Whatever that is, that it comes from jealousy, and comes from that scarcity mindset and competition to each other. But if you think that, just for a moment, so-and-so winning that competition, did it do anything harm to you? And think it as a joy. If so-and-so win the competition, how joyous that is. If you kind of sense that joy and get a crumb of that joy for yourself, you can actually make your life so much more joyous. So then your life is much more positive. And I always find that without we trying, it's going to be always negative. Just know that it's always going to be negative. So we have to do something about it to be neutral even, at least less negative, because the world is more negative tendency. So especially negativity from outside world is that I said it's avoiding is not a sign of weakness, but it's wisdom. So because why you keep facing the trash, you just throw it away rather than just look at it and talking about it. And I think the best advice that I could give for you for the negativity from outside is unless you accept the negativity into your heart, none of the negativity has that power. It's you allowing the negativity works to your heart. So I think it is important for you to recognize that it's not them, it's you to allow it. So whenever I get into the trap all the time, but if so-and-so or some teacher or some outside of world to be negative towards me, then I chin up and try to ignore as much as possible. Again, it is not criticism, like constructive feedback. It's coming from love. It's not coming from love. Then I recognize that and then try to erase it as soon as possible. And also, if I don't allow it, it doesn't have a power. So just last the context of it. And I use that quote that if someone came to your house with all bag of filthy trash and threw it in your house, what would you do? You would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
But if you allow other people talking bad, and if you allow that, that means you allow in your living room in this filthy trash to your mind. So then you have to protect it. You are the one who protects it. It's not, there's all the people out there that's going to try to throw the garbage inside of your mind. So you have so much vigilant about it. And hopefully there's one last trash can is coming into your mind.
Right. And the same goes with our mind, too. We always battle with negative and positive thoughts. And negative thoughts are referred to as cognitive distortions. So sometimes we exaggerate. Let's say I made a little mistake on stage, and then in my mind, it's like, oh my gosh, that was a fatal mistake, and I can't recover from that. Now, in your book, you talk about it, too. But briefly, can you tell us?
Right. I think it is, if we are talking in the context of a performance anxiety, I would say we have to separate, are you ready? Are you ready to perform yet? That's also, I'm assuming all the tips that I actually want to give is based on you are ready. All the steps that you made, efficient practice strategy, and you are ready to perform, but still there's performance anxiety. That's different thing. So I'm going to assume that you are absolutely ready to perform. And then you, this negative voices in your head, and to know that the tiger inside of you never going to go away, no matter how advanced you are. Even Horowitz has to kick out to the stage because he was like, I don't want to go to the stage. And the manager will kick him out, So it's not depending on the level of your performance, but it's a human mind, So just know that our pain is your pain too, then it feels a little easier to deal with it. And then we still have to deal with it though. And I think that one of the most effective way to any issues that you have in your life, it's writing down. Writing gives a clothing to your thoughts. If you only think in your mind, that's just floating and, in the randomly bites you. But if you started to write it down, it feels like, it's nothing. As you said, we tend to exaggerate. But if you actually grab it down and write it down, what exactly I'm worrying about? I am worrying about people think that I'm bad. I'm worrying about if I'm going to make them mistake. So writing down all of the negative thoughts is bothering you. Then define it where this coming from. Is it coming from my own voice, from my teacher in the past? What is based on? And then also defend these tendencies with a positive voice, like, no, you're gonna be great. This performance. No matter what, it's going to be a beautiful experience. So you actually come back with this negativity with at least 5 different positive sentences. And that exercise helps in the moment of battle. I battle during the performance. That I'm the difficult section coming up, and then this angelic voice that you train so much and think, oh, you got this, you got this. And even if you make mistake, it is just a small. You just pick it up and keep going. All of those ready-made, prepared positive sentence will help you. And also write the affirmation sentences saying, I'm excited to play this concert. I'm gonna connect with audience. I love expressing this music, or all of those affirmation sentences that you say out loud. Is like fake it until make it. And also write a visualization in your actual performance, the most positive way, in details on the day. You write it down and read it out loud. This visualization technique is not unknown to other fields. It's a sports or Olympian will do all the time before their game. So we have to give a food to the positivity more. Otherwise, we all have a tendency to be more negative. So and that comes down to how we use words. And I can't emphasize more about the power of words, or how you say, whether writing or the say out loud. You do it with yourself or with others, but mostly saying out loud. Notice yourself how negatively you are saying, oh, this was difficult. Oh, I'm gonna make a mistake. That was horrible. If you think that it will be okay because you're just telling to yourself, but it's not. By that moment, you're giving the power to the negativity. So even though you think that moment that way, just don't say out loud. Then at least you can make that into a little more power. So even when you're saying with others, notice yourself. Are you saying something negative about this thing with others or someone else? Are you gossiping? Are you complaining? Are you giving a bad energy to someone? All of these things ultimately come back to you. So it's all of it is it's to protect yourself, but it's also creating the environment so that more positive people gonna come to you. Negative people want to grab the negative people. They want to gather in a restaurant and talk about negative things. They love that. So you don't want to be part of it. If you choose not to be in that negative group, you will find out the world is great, because you will see those positive people. Jeeyoon, you're doing great. Oh my gosh, you're gonna do great. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for your project. Wow, I can't wait to be there in your concert. They're not gonna come back to you and like, oh my gosh, that's gonna be so difficult. How are you gonna fund that? So you create your own environment. That's the only way.
Oh, thank you. And then, going to movement 3 of your book, you talk about create, dream, play. And then what struck me was the quote you say, what is success? What does a success life look like to me? So, Jeeyoon, what is to you? What is...
It's very difficult to live in this time of era. Everything is pneumatic, So some people will say if you make X amount of money that you are successful. If you're like 100,000 a year, is that successful? Is it 200,000 then successful? Is it 80,000 then it's not successful? If you have 100,000 followers, is that successful? If you win #1 competition on Ben Cliven, is that successful? It may look successful to our eye. It's like, yeah, we would love to win that competition. But then why they are depressed? Why some people commit suicide? They have millions and millions in their bank account. So, I hope that we are not limiting ourselves to being happy only if you accomplish something tangible or expect of you. because that's a dangerous trap, because you can never get enough. If you get X amount, you need another. If you have 100,000 of spending, then your spending is so much that you need a 200,000, you know? So I think it's very, very important for us to think life as a game, that all of your projects, all of these things, like it's fun game, you push it as much as possible with all intensity, but then the outcome is not out of your control. If it's you just detaching yourself self value with what you do. I don't think my dream of success is not depending on what I do. Yes, I do play piano, I do all of these things, but it's not measure of my success. My success is the status of my being. I do what I love to do in my life daily basis. My picture of success is not shaken by, if I don't make that money, or if I don't get that concert, or I, fail something. It's not depending on that. I want to keep my mind content, happy, simple, calm, and able to generate myself a self energy of life, and so that I'm in a happy place on a daily basis. Who can say to you, you are successful? I mean, they're not living my life. If I say I'm happy, I am, that's a success, isn't it? So I really believe that you can be successful today, as of now. It's because it's based on your mind.
Thank you. So, I want to get to your, the recent project Seum very soon, but then I think the lockdown, of 2020 had something to do with it, probably to get to that project. So, when I read your book, I kept all the quotes from the book. So, let me quote one more. So, you're saying in the book, we may need to find ways to deliver the core values of what we do without physical contact, even after this crisis. Many jobs have disappeared and new ones have been and are being created. As much as it can be daunting and frustrating, it can also be liberating to reset one's life course. The change is already here, and we just have to be much more active and forward thinking to accept it. End quote. So I could not help but say amen out loud after reading that specific quote, because I feel the same way. But how can we keep the classical music tradition while the world changes so rapidly?
I think first we need to change with the change. We can't just be stubborn. Our classical musicians are, also in heart, right? Because we are dealing with the Bach and Mozart and love, we can be in touch with those music because we have that soul in us. But we are only moving forward. We're not going back to 1800, where one of the piano recital is the most exciting thing happening in their life, so we have to kind of reassess where are we. The good news is that what we're doing, as I said, the classical music has the ultimate power and beauty, which is timeless. So be confident with this content. If we are selling, I don't know, like a laundry machine or something, if you're really confident this laundry machine is the best in the world, you will sell it, right? Same thing with the classical music. It has such a beauty and power. You believe in it. So then we have to just find a way to deliver. I believe that people will go crazy over Mozart and Chopin or Rachmaninoff. We just have to tweak the delivery. No more straightforward recital. You just show up and no talk at all and play intermission. And yes, the tradition is still going, and there are some people going too. But that's the danger right there, because the presenters and the concert boards are older and older, and the younger generation don't even bother to even go there. But it's still continue. I think we have to think about people focused. you as a person who is a messenger, you know. So I think the change might be more connection based. You know, people want connection. As much as we have these fancy devices and all of that, but we still want to be, you know, cozy up and hearing, listen, really listen, you know. So I think when I even create an album, I create a, you know, a manual, album manual, which is a very simple manual, which is, can you spare an hour from your life? Not as a background of music when you're cooking, but actually using good sound system and read each paragraph that I wrote about this piece and close your eyes and dive into an experience. Isn't that just simple? But nobody ever told them. Nobody ever told them how to listen. They thought like music is something they hear while they'll drive, you know. But since we know how to listen, because we know the beauty of live music, or just hearing someone play in front of you in the living room, that connection. So we wanted to, as a teacher mind or a friend, an empathetic mind, that you have to open yourself to people, the vulnerability, like the belief in the power of storytelling. The storytelling can be, you know, I love this piece. I hate this piece too, you know, because this has such a technical challenge. It's like, it drives me crazy. That already is that storytelling, you know, or open up your life and ask them to join into the experience. Passion is contagious. It's so contagious. If I think like, oh my gosh, this piece drives so good, and then they'll be like, oh, what is it? You know, because I am so passionately talking about it. So be a missionary of classical music. I believe that any small effort doesn't have to be anything fancy or visual or illustration, doesn't have to be anything. We just make a small tweak to want to connect. That makes a big difference to the audience, especially the young audience. Right. And keep thinking about how could you deliver that music, how to set it up so people can experience the deeper way. We are not changing this one to the new age. We are not going to be all of a sudden drum set next to piano. Piano music is going to be right there, you know?
Right.
I think what we want to do is that just how to get there, an empathetic way, connecting way, warm and friendly, you know? And then thinking as how much barrier can I get rid of? Is this bowing in between pieces necessary? Intermission necessary? Is it clapping in between necessary? Question every tradition other than the music itself. Right. Question it and try to different and experiment and see if people respond differently. You know, then they want to feel you. They want to feel you who delivers. They care about Mozart, but not as much as you. So bring yourself into a delivery man, a messenger, open up yourself, then people will get it. People will get the Mozart no matter what.
Right, yeah. So where does this gift of seeing hope and despair and the possibilities and failure come from? You know, you're all about, but you know, I don't believe in toxic positivity either. And you're not in denial of, you know, failures and despair, right? So where does this come from? Is it therapy? Is it a meditation you do or philosophy you read? Or is it some sort of a religious belief? What is it?
I do believe the resilience that I have is a strength that I have, as something that probably I cultivated throughout my life. You know, I cannot say I only have difficult times, because we all have difficult times of life. So, but I'm so thankful that my parents, who gave me unconditional love so that I could learn to love myself in the first place, and not rely on others to give me that value to me. So whenever the storm of my life hits me in a hard way, since I care for my life, my own, I got up, started to walk again. knowing that life goes on, that it's still beautiful as it is today. You know, funny, but something I learned that when I was young about like going to dentist, you know, like as much as I hated going to there, my mom always reminded me that, you know, the dental problem never goes away on its own, only worsen over time, right? Better go and fix it now. And I think it's similar to life. Life is short and finite. I wish it could last forever, but it doesn't. You know, so in more days you waste with the negativity, the less days you would enjoy this beautiful time on earth. And I think this limit of life gives one perspective of appreciation of what we already have. But I also want to add that is coming from all kinds of conscious training throughout my life, especially in the efforts to see positive, being careful with words that I said with others, or writing and journaling all the time, being aware of my own voices through meditation, daily meditation, and of course, always trying to learn something, wisdom from all of the people in my life that has a broader perspective. And life is never easy, but I think it's definitely some pathway that we can learn. You know, meditation was in 1,000 years of history. Yoga was thousands of years history that all people use somehow to deal with this life. And then we can learn from those wisdoms and adapt and make it easier for ourselves. And I think, you know, I believe music is one of it to make it all better, you know.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk about your upcoming project, which is, you've already done this project, I think right after immediately we were released from the lockdown. It's the Shim. You did the concert, which is it a concert, right? And 2022, and then you're doing it again in Carnegie Hall, June 7th, and tickets will be available very soon, or is it already available?
If this is aired after March 7th, it will be available to purchase today.
Okay, perfect. Now, can you tell us about the Shim?
Yeah.
What is it about?
Yeah, so, well, this is my returning appearance in Carnegie, so I'm so excited about it. So if you're in New York, or if you need an excuse to come to New York, please use it as an excuse. So this project, Shim, is my COVID baby. It took almost 2 years to make it into, appearance, first appearance to the public. And Shi means poetry, and is first part of 음악, which means music in Korean. So my idea started as I wanted to use poetry. I never tried poetry, and I wanted to try the poetry. And then when I thought of it, I loved that idea, although I had no idea what is poetry. You know, English is not even my main language, but I was just like tackling these words, writing a book and courageous moves. But to me, I always thought music is poetry and poetry is music with the words, that succinct process of editing and practicing, making into something that polished delivery is very much in line with the classical music. And so I wanted to pair with the poem per piece. And that process was not really easy, very rocky at first, actually, because I commissioned entire 13 pieces in my album or a concert, one poem, which I'm going to not tell who, because I did not like any of it, what he did. And I was really desperate because I thought creating something new would be the way to go. But then I was not connected with it that he did. And then I was in a very difficult place. What now, So then I had to dig deeper and ask so many advices and realize that still I am the messenger. I am the curator. So whatever I feel the most strongly match with the piece, That's all we need. I'm not looking for the greatest poem out in the world or in the history. I'm not looking for that poem. I'm looking for the poem that reflects the very feeling that I'm trying to convey in that very piece of music, which only I can know very best in my interpretation. So then I gain a little bit of strength to in the choosing. So the 13 different poems that I selected are some from the past, poet that passed away, or the newly commissioned, that which I actually liked. So each one is a self-selected, or some poems already existed, and then I asked for permission. And then afterwards that I thought, oh, what if I have created something to hold this music, to hold a poem, which came about very randomly from a friend of mine who's a photographer in his 60s. He's now in late 80s. And he showed me these boxes of negatives, black and white film photographies. And I was, what is this, And it's like almost like about to throw away. And I was looking into it, into the light. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like all the nature photography he took. Film photography goes so much layers to it. You go to dark room and develop from negatives, going to the same spot multiple times to get that perfect shot. It's not like digitals that you can take thousands and choose one. Right. And when I saw his photography, it was so poetic. Sometimes it's the sunlight reflecting something. You don't even recognize what that is, but then you think. And that was the place that I'm going to hold all three elements together. So in my Shim project, on concert and an album, there is one nature, black and white, film photography projected on the screen. Before I play, I tell about the story or sometimes recite the poem that I selected. And then out of this project that I created, nowadays people say they don't have a CD player. And in fact, I don't even have a CD player anymore. So that is like, but as a recording artist, like that's really heart-wrenching, reality. So then I thought, I still want to create an album. We still want to create a music. So I created this package, which is the postcards, 13 different postcards match per piece, 13 different poems. And then there's download card of this album. And then the backup postcard that my request or idea of this packaging was that think of someone when you listen to this music along with the poetry and photography, write a note to that person on that postcard and send it to that person. And there's a QR code on the back of the postcard, and that person can also listen to my album. So this project starts on my side, but end on your side. And that's like the way of interacting with the audience that they may not see me in person. And I love that idea that, again, it starts from the poetry. It's a random idea, but then turning into something beyond my imagination and turning into some beautiful thing that I can share. But on top of all of it, what I wanted to share, maybe that Scarlatti Sonata, that maybe all of that is that I wanted to share that very piece, Rachmaninoff, a better way. So I explain all this process. But at the end of it, the music is the reason I did it.
Wow. So at Carnegie Hall, you'll be, maybe without the photos, but somebody will be reading the poem?
I am the reading. So in my concert, there's always the signature thing, which is a microphone on stage. So sometimes people are very uncomfortable because I often don't give out program at the beginning, but give out at the end when they walk out. The idea is, again, you don't have to know anything. Let me guide you. Just let it go. Let it go if you want to know the future in 20 minutes from now. Just be there. I prepared this one so thoroughly, in beforehand for you, even from the appetizer to dessert. So just take you to the experience. And so I will recite poem sometimes. I tell you some story about a piece, but the more importantly, you will get a deeper level of experience of the very piece that you you never heard or you heard 1,000 times already.
Right.
So that's going to be an experience in Carnegie Hall. Fortunately, there's not going to be photography, but I'm on tour of Shim still currently, and you more likely if you catch me, you will have that photography. And if you can't catch me, you can always, purchase an album or the postcards and experience on your own way in your living room. And I think in April, I forgot the date, but if you come to my website, there's another concert coming up in Chicago. So the Shim is coming in Chicago as well.
Wonderful. So make sure to check out Jeeyoon's website at jeeyoonkim.com. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
With all the information.
Best way to connect with me is through newsletter. And so you can sign up on that on my website where I write once, maybe 2 or 3 weeks about things that I've learned in that week. So it's about like ongoing process of communicating with people in a written world, which is the most fitting for me actually. Besides talking, I mean today was very much a fitting in my alley. But I think that would be the closest way to stay connected. Of course, you can follow me Instagram or YouTube and podcasts and all that. But I think the most intimate way and direct will be newsletter.
Okay. Sounds great. So then the tickets for the Carnegie will be available very soon. I mean, by the time this episode will be released, it's up. So it's the concert is at Weil Hall, Carnegie on June 7th. And then I hope to be there also, Jeeyoon. Yeah. So Jeeyoon, this has been such a fun and inspirational conversation, really. And I enjoyed it every moment. So thank you so much. So before I let you go, we have one more thing to do. It's called the Piano Pod Rapid Fire Questions. So this is a part of the show where I get to ask fun questions to each guest. Now, here's a little warning. So as fun and as silly as these questions may sound, your answers may reveal who truly you are. So are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. Please answer them with the shortest responses as possible and no explanation needed.
Okay.
All right. Number 1. What is your comfort food?
Ramen.
Yes. How do you like your coffee?
Oh, I like matcha.
Oh, yes. That's great. Now, cats or dogs?
Oh, tricky. I'm always a cat person at heart.
Okay.
But I love dogs too.
Yes. What is your word or words to live by?
Peace.
No. What is the most important quality you look for in other people?
Honesty.
Name 3 people who inspire you, living or dead.
Oh, all the people you may not know. But my teacher, Reiko Neriki from Indiana University, David Bremer, who was my mentor, who passed away. I think it's my mom.
Beautiful. So, name 1 piece in your current playlist.
I listened to yesterday Arensky Piano Trio, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I think it's a 3rd movement scherzo. Ding, 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 ding. I love that.
Okay, great. Now the last one. Fill in the blank. Music is blank.
Gift from God.
Beautiful. Ding, ding. That's it. You won. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this concludes this episode of the Piano Pod. Thank you, Jeeyoon, for joining my show today and then sharing your stories, insights, expertise. And you can find more information about Jeeyoon's work through her website at jeeyoonkim.com. And please check out her YouTube channel at Jeeyoon Kim Pianist. And thank you to my wonderful audience and fans for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review it on whatever podcasting platform you use. And if you're watching us on YouTube, remember to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. You can also find my show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The links are listed in the show notes. I will see you for the next episode of the Piano Pod. Bye, everyone, and thank you, Jeeyoon. Thank you.
you.
Thank you.